It's May, and the last traces of spring fade into the warmth of summer. Poor Yuzuru, barely 15, is facing the dreaded matchmaking interview. His grandpa's endless complaints suffocate him, constantly urging him to tie the knot. The pressure has been building since he graduated middle school, completely disregarding the fact that he's just a kid with zero interest in marriage. At school, he sits in his usual spot, brooding. His friend notices and asks why the gloomy face. Yuzuru sighs deeply, explaining how his grandparents are obsessed with seeing a great-grandchild. His friend laughs, joking that he should marry right away to satisfy them. Yuzuru, however, finds no humor in the situation. Every time he returns home, his grandparents' grip tightens, trapping him in their relentless pressure. As the upcoming marriage interview looms during his long vacation, Yuzuru feels trapped. He has no intention of marrying, but guilt lingers, knowing he's disappointing his family. His friend, seeing his desperation, suggests a clever escape plan: throw out impossible conditions for the match. Curious, Yuzuru asks for the details. His friend grins and proposes a foreigner with golden hair, blue eyes, and exceptional household skills, all while being a Japanese citizen. Yuzuru finds the idea brilliant but pushes for even more ridiculous conditions. Their plotting is interrupted by a phone call from Yuzuru's grandfather. Annoyed, the old man announces the marriage interview is set, calling it a once-in-a-lifetime request. Smirking, Yuzuru throws out his absurd conditions, fully expecting them to be impossible. To his shock, his grandfather accepts the challenge. Yuzuru snickers, confident that such a girl doesn't exist, but his grandfather seems determined. Later, Yuzuru's friend brings up a name: Yukishiro Arisa, a classmate. She matches some of the criteria. Her hair is pale brown instead of golden, and her eyes are green instead of blue, but she's close. She's also the school's Bishudo celebrity, admired for her beauty and grace. Yuzuru scoffs, thinking the idea of her showing up at the interview is laughable. His friend teases him, asking if he would accept her if she did appear. Yuzuru frowns, admitting she's attractive, but not his type. She's too perfect, too distant, like a doll with no spark of life. On the school roof, they watch her watering plants below. Yuzuru feels uneasy, imagining her in a relationship. He's convinced there's no chemistry between them, but his friend points out that personality matters more than looks. Yuzuru doesn't disagree, but his unease grows, especially as his grandparents' desperation hovers over him. By the end of May, his confidence crumbles when he arrives at a traditional restaurant for the interview. Sitting across from him is none other than Yukishiro Arisa, greeting everyone warmly. Yuzuru feels betrayed by his grandfather's unmatched connections. Both sets of parents chat peacefully, while Yuzuru sulks, realizing he's underestimated his grandfather. His mind reels at the absurdity of it all as his grandfather praises Arisa's beauty, leaving Yuzuru trapped in a situation he thought he could avoid. Takasegawa Yuzuru greets her, but she surprises him by mentioning that they already met. Their parents are amazed to discover that they are classmates in the same year, which Yukishiro's parents call a dream come true. However, Yuzuru's father points out that it's too soon to discuss marriage, though certain matters often demand urgency. Undeterred, his grandfather insists that Yuzuru escort Arisa on a walk. As they stroll in awkward silence, Arisa breaks it by apologizing for the interview. She explains that her stepfather forced her into it, and that she has no interest in getting engaged. Yuzuru feels a wave of relief, realizing he's not alone in this predicament. He admits he was also forced into the meeting and even set impossible conditions to avoid it. Conditions she somehow met. Arisa reveals that her stepfather told her Yuzuru personally nominated her, which leaves Yuzuru bewildered. To make things easier, Arisa suggests a fake engagement to keep their families at bay and avoid future interviews. Yuzuru hesitates, torn between telling the lie and enduring endless matchmaking sessions. Arisa waits patiently for his response, her determination making it hard for him to refuse. Before he can decide, a yawning cat stuck in a tree catches their attention. They wonder how the cat got so high but now seems helpless. Arisa worries for the animal and urges Takasegawa-san to rescue it. Reluctantly, as he's more of a dog person, he removes his jacket, causing Arisa to shout in flustered protest. However, she quickly realizes he's wearing a t-shirt underneath and feels embarrassed by her overreaction. Yuzuru tosses his jacket to her, confirming her athletic skills. He climbs the tree with ease, calling down to Arisa to be ready to catch the cat if it jumps. He reaches the feline and grabs it, but the startled kitty bolts. As Arisa watches anxiously, Yuzuru loses his footing and tumbles from the tree. The fall lands him in the hospital with a fractured leg. His guardian listens to the doctor's advice, learning that Yuzuru will need crutches for a week and a month or more for full recovery. He grumbles, blaming the cat entirely for his misfortune. Arisa arrives with her parents, who apologize profusely. Her stepmother promises to cover all medical and consolation expenses, while Arisa looks guilty. Her mother, feeling responsible, bows deeply, trying to make Arisa do the same. Yuzuru grows uncomfortable and insists they stop. Grandfather, observing the interaction, comments on the difference in Arisa's surname and learns her stepfather hasn't formally adopted her. The Amaji family, once prosperous, has faced financial struggles in recent years. Yuzuru's parents argue that he climbed the tree of his own accord, but Yuzuru waves it off, insisting no one is to blame. As tension lingers, Yuzuru suddenly pretends to like Arisa, proposing to make her his fiancée. Arisa is stunned but softens when he winks at her. Realizing his intentions, she smiles and accepts. Their parents, delighted, cheer the happy engagement, while the two quietly share their shyness, wondering how they ended up in this whirlwind. Yuzuru and Arisa sit on a park bench, the gentle breeze carrying the faint scent of blooming flowers. She looks down, guilt shadowing her delicate features, and apologizes softly for the trouble she's caused. Yuzuru brushes it off with a wave, assuring her the fall from the tree was entirely his fault. But Arisa shakes her head, her voice trembling slightly as she clarifies that her apology isn't about the accident, it's about the engagement. Her worry spills out in fragmented sentences. She fears that when the arrangement inevitably fails, the blame will be placed squarely on her shoulders. Yuzuru watches her with quiet understanding, his expression softening as he empathizes with her position in the Amaji household. He offers her a rare, reassuring smile, promising that the burden of this situation is his to carry, not hers. As she continues voicing her fears about being forced into a marriage for wealth or control, he glimpses the heavy weight she bears. Her gratitude for his support is genuine, and when he reassures her again, some of the tension in her shoulders eases. For a fleeting moment, silence envelops them, both lost in their own thoughts until Yuzuru glances at his watch and decides it's time to head back. The next morning, Yuzuru groans as his alarm clock rings incessantly, its shrill sound shattering the peace of dawn. Begrudgingly, he drags himself out of bed, wincing as his leg twinges in protest. The 1-hour commute to school looms over him like a dark cloud. Slipping on his shirt, he reflects bitterly on how his once simple life seems to grow more convoluted by the day. Just as he's about to take a moment to breathe, the doorbell rings. Yawning, he opens the door to find Arisa standing there, her calm expression betraying no hint of the awkwardness from the day before. She informs him, with the same serene tone, that she intends to assist him until he recovers. Yuzuru blinks, caught entirely off guard by her straightforwardness. Before he can fully process her offer, he fumbles with his crutch, slipping forward and falling face first into her. Mortified, he scrambles back up, his cheeks flaming as Arisa helps him to his feet. Concerned, she asks if he's okay, but Yuzuru, flustered, dismisses her with a stammered reply. Arisa, unfazed, explains that her offer is only to repay his earlier kindness. Yuzuru hesitates, worried about what others might think if they see her helping him. Suggesting they avoid situations that could fuel rumors, he proposes she accompany him only to the apartment gate. Arisa nods in agreement, but before leaving, she suggests they exchange phone numbers for emergencies. He fumbles awkwardly with his bag, ultimately letting her add her number herself. She waves goodbye, reminding him to text when he's on his way home. At school, Yuzuru's friends gather around during lunch, one tossing him a loaf of bread as requested. They poke fun at his injury, laughing at his exaggerated recounting of the infamous cat on a tree incident. Though annoyed, Yuzuru finds their laughter contagious and even smiles despite himself. However, their teasing takes a sharp turn when they bring up his marriage interview. Lowering his voice, he tries to divert the topic, but from a distance, his eyes land on Arisa. Seated in the cafe with her friends, Arisa looks poised and serene, her every move seemingly effortless. Yet Yuzuru notices the faint stiffness in her smile, a subtle crack in the flawless image she projects. Though her social skills appear impeccable, she seems to intentionally downplay her presence, blending into the group rather than drawing attention. He can't shake the feeling that her polished demeanor hides something deeper. When his friends tease him about his absurd matchmaking conditions, Yuzuru insists no one could possibly meet them. They accuse him of lying, but the topic shifts before he can defend himself, sparing him further embarrassment. On his way home, Yuzuru prays silently that no one at school has caught on to his arrangement with Arisa. To his surprise, he finds her waiting outside his apartment building. Without a word, she takes his bag, brushing off his half-hearted protests. Riding the elevator together, her calm demeanor contrasts sharply with his lingering unease. At the door, she offers to help further, even suggesting she remove his shoes. Yuzuru declines, fumbling through his bag for his keys. When Arisa opens the door, she freezes, staring at the cluttered chaos of his apartment. Pointing out the potential hazards, she insists on cleaning his walking sticks before he can trip again. Pulling a cloth from her bag, she begins wiping them down with surprising diligence. Yuzuru waves her off, insisting he can manage, but her persistence wins. Reluctantly, she leaves, though not before repeatedly asking if he'll be all right. Moments later, Yuzuru stumbles over a misplaced item and nearly falls. Before he hits the ground, Arisa catches him, her grip firm despite her small frame. Embarrassed, Yuzuru thanks her, and she promptly requests permission to tidy his apartment. This time he reluctantly agrees, unable to argue with her logic. Arisa dives into cleaning with unwavering determination, transforming the cluttered space into a spotless sanctuary. Yuzuru, unsure whether to feel grateful or self-conscious, watches in stunned silence as she scrubs every corner. After finishing, she grabs the trash and heads out, promising to return later. Before leaving, she hesitates, asking about his bathroom situation. Yuzuru explains the doctor's advice to avoid full baths, but Arisa's expression turns contemplative. Worried about slippery tiles, she suggests assisting him while wearing a jersey for modesty. Yuzuru balks, but her unyielding determination leaves him no choice. With a resigned sigh, he agrees, albeit with a promise to repay her kindness someday. Later, Yuzuru stands at the bathroom door, nerves frayed. Arisa arrives promptly, supporting him with surprising strength. Her calm encouragement helps him step into the bath, and he lowers himself onto the stool with a deep breath of relief. She proposes continuing the routine for a week, earning a half-hearted nod in response. Afterward, Arisa inspects his refrigerator, her brow furrowing at the lack of real food. Yuzuru sheepishly admits to surviving on instant meals, eliciting a shocked yet determined expression from her. She returns shortly with fresh groceries and begins cooking. The apartment fills with the aroma of home-cooked food, and Yuzuru marvels at the spread she prepares. As he eats, he can't hide his surprise at the depth of flavor in every bite. His enthusiastic praise flusters Arisa, who admits she's unaccustomed to compliments. By the time she finishes cleaning up, she points out leftovers for his breakfast before departing. Yuzuru watches her go, her thoughtfulness leaving him both grateful and in awe. Sitting alone in his now pristine apartment, he reflects on the strange but undeniable warmth she's brought into his life. Meanwhile, Arisa walks home, her cheeks flushed and her mind spinning from the day's events. The next morning, Yuzuru and Arisa walk to school together, the air around them filled with a comfortable silence. As they approach the gate, Arisa begins outlining her plans for the day, mentioning her intention to tackle more cleaning. She asks him to separate items he uses from those he doesn't. His mind flashes to the email she sent the night before, gently reminding him to tidy up beforehand. However, he brushes off the thought and simply tells her to do as she likes, trusting her judgment. With his broken leg hindering his movements, hiding items he doesn't want her to see had been a challenging task. After school, they return to his apartment. Arisa promptly requests permission to use the changing room, explaining that she doesn't want to clean in her uniform. He waves her off, telling her to make herself comfortable, but before he can voice any concerns, she's already gone. He's left bewildered by how easily she trusts him. Even while changing in a boy's apartment, moments later, she reappears, now dressed in simple trousers and a shirt. Her casual outfit gives the apartment a subtly different atmosphere, one that he can't quite describe. Arisa dives straight into cleaning the living area, her movements swift and efficient. Seated on the couch, Yuzuru watches her and can't help but notice how her straightforward demeanor contrasts with her quiet nature at school. Her honesty catches him off guard, and he realizes she's far easier to talk to when she's not putting up a pretense. While she works, she teases him about how quickly his apartment becomes messy, adding that she'll help him keep it tidy. He uses the moment to ask why she seems so reserved at school. Though she doesn't answer directly, her expression hints at a deeper reason. Yuzuru pieces together the puzzle. Arisa's mixed heritage gives her strikingly Western features, making her stand out in ways that aren't always comfortable. While there's nothing wrong with being different, he imagines it's easier for her to blend in and avoid attention. Respecting her unspoken boundaries, he silently appreciates her decision to drop the facade around him. Her candidness is refreshing, especially compared to her usual guarded nature. As she wipes down the remote, he muses aloud that interacting with her honesty feels easier than navigating social masks. Arisa pauses and asks him to keep their engagement private, even from his close friends. Yuzuru reassures her, though he recalls the possibility that she overheard his earlier conversation with them. Her visible relief at his agreement softens her features. She insists she dislikes the idea of people assuming she has a boyfriend, prompting Yuzuru to joke that her beauty might cause an uproar if others knew she was visiting his apartment. Arisa blushes at the comment but seems reassured they're on the same page. 10 days pass and his leg finally heals, freeing him from his crutch. Arisa stops visiting his apartment, and the difference in his daily routine is palpable. Another 10 days later, Yuzuru sits with his friends in the school cafeteria. Lunch feels oddly lackluster compared to Arisa's cooking. His friends immediately notice his newfound habit of eating vegetables and tease him, suspecting a girlfriend's influence. He denies the claim but admits a girl helped him during his recovery. They press him to properly thank her, but he hesitates, unsure how to proceed. Soichiro, ever dramatic, teases him for keeping secrets, while another friend offers sensible advice. Directly ask what she'd like as a thank you gift. Yuzuru praises the idea but soon finds himself caught in their friendly banter. That evening, alone in his apartment, Yuzuru agonizes over how to express his gratitude. He drafts and erases several emails before finally settling on one. When he sends it, Arisa's reply comes almost instantly. Her request surprises him. She wants to play a game she noticed in his apartment. Yuzuru smiles, her casual tone catching him off guard in a pleasant way. The next day, Arisa arrives at his apartment dressed in a crisp white blouse and beige pants, her presence understated yet brightening his small living space. She steps inside, her gaze sweeping over the tidy room. Offering a rare smile, she compliments his effort, and he feels a small surge of pride. When she heads to the kitchen, she comments on his lack of cooking skills. He sheepishly admits he's been trying to eat healthier, which earns her approval and a light-hearted remark about his progress. They decide to play a video game together. Arisa studies his collection with intense focus, her gaze flitting between titles before selecting one. Yuzuru sets it up and hands her the controller. Her awkward grip makes it clear she's unfamiliar with gaming. Yuzuru chuckles, stepping behind her to guide her hands. The proximity makes her shy, and she mumbles a quiet thanks before immersing herself in the game. As they play, she casually mentions being bullied at school. Yuzuru's chest tightens, though he isn't entirely surprised. He reassures her in his own way, imposing playful in-game restrictions for fun. Arisa refuses to be coddled, insisting on fair treatment. Yuzuru relents, teasing her about being a beginner. To his astonishment, Arisa dominates the game, her calm focus unnerving. Despite his best efforts, she wins easily. Yuzuru, though stunned, finds himself secretly pleased by her rare smile, though he hides it behind a feigned nonchalance. When he asks how she's so skilled without owning games, Arisa mentions her strict upbringing. Her mother discouraged distractions, enforcing a regimen of study and discipline. Yuzuru realizes that his apartment offers her a rare chance to unwind. Her honesty tugs at him, but she snaps him out of his thoughts by pointing out his poor gaming skills. Yuzuru jokes in return, but Arisa remains serious, critiquing his habit of buying items he barely uses. Her gaze shifts to his kitchen utensils and workout equipment. He defends himself, mentioning occasional workouts with friends. He offers to show off his muscles, lifting his shirt teasingly. Arisa quickly averts her gaze, cheeks flushing, which he finds endearing. Switching topics, he offers to make coffee. Arisa requests milk and sugar, and Yuzuru confidently sets to work. With a sleek coffee machine, he prepares 2 cups and brings them to the table along with a small box of sweets. Arisa immediately recognizes the milk's high quality and selects a strawberry shortcake from the sweets. Her first bite earns a soft gasp of delight, though the coffee's bitterness makes her grimace. Yuzuru laughs, her reaction catching him off guard. Adding sugar, Arisa scolds him lightly, earning a playful smirk in response. Their conversation shifts to his friends. Arisa listens attentively as he describes Soichiro and Ryozenji. Though unfamiliar with them, she notes their popularity among girls at school. Yuzuru agrees but highlights their contrasting personalities, drawing a whisper from her. When he tries to coax her thoughts on the matter, she shakes her head, leaving him curious and amused by her subtle hesitation. They sit side by side in the living room, deeply immersed in their video game. He decides to distract her by casually complimenting her cooking. He mentions her nikujaga soup, marveling at how the sweetness and flavor are in perfect harmony. Arisa blushes, her focus slipping from the game. He continues to talk about the soup, trying to distract her enough to win. But to his surprise, the game ends with her victory. She smirks, clearly seeing through his scheme, and comments that his compliments sounded rather forced. Yuzuru laughs awkwardly, admitting he may have overdone it, but he genuinely enjoyed her soup. Arisa, knowing her cooking is good, admits that she doesn't particularly enjoy it. It's simply something she prepares for herself back home. Yuzuru insists that her cooking is truly delicious and asks if he can have more. Arisa, absent-mindedly rubbing her leg, teases him by asking if he really wants more today. Since he treated her to cake, she's happy to return the favor. Yuzuru smiles warmly, and soon Arisa is cooking a variety of extravagant dishes, surprising him. She dismisses it, saying it's no big deal, and joking that even he could make something simple like hayako if he had fresh tofu. Yuzuru feels guilty for making her cook, but expresses sincere thanks. Arisa, in return, thanks him for the cake and the fun gaming session. She mentions that she cooks for her family as well, which Yuzuru already knows. She wonders aloud if her family's advice to win him over through cooking has other motives, like securing his family's assets. Yuzuru laughs, joking that she's already won over his stomach. She grins and reminds him to eat before the food gets cold. They sit down to eat, offering a brief prayer before beginning. Yuzuru takes his first sip and is stunned by the taste. Arisa didn't do anything special to enhance it. It's just her natural ability. He compliments her cooking again, reminding her to consider portion sizes. She brushes it off, saying good food speaks for itself. As Yuzuru eats, Arisa watches him with a wary look, suspicious of his praise. He reassures her, but she remains doubtful and points out there's still food left. Yuzuru eagerly asks for seconds, handing her his plate. She heads to the kitchen to heat up more food, and he watches her from the couch, wondering if she realizes how serious he is about her cooking. Later, Yuzuru walks Arisa to the station. She notices that he takes the roadside, something she hadn't observed about him before. He recalls his friend's advice but pretends he learned it from his parents, feeling embarrassed about admitting the truth. Arisa feels guilty, thinking she has caused trouble for him with his family, but Yuzuru quickly reassures her that his parents are kind. She relaxes slightly, though her expression turns somber when he asks about her own parents. After a brief pause, Arisa admits she was scolded in the past for her mistakes. Yuzuru notices her sadness and decides to change the topic, hoping to cheer her up. She appreciates his consideration, grateful that he respects her boundaries. He encourages her to be honest about her feelings, which surprises her. Though she finds him a bit irritating, she smiles and thanks him for respecting her. At the station, she thanks Yuzuru for the day's enjoyment. He reflects on the day with her, and she offers to play games again next week. Yuzuru agrees but insists he doesn't want her to feel obligated. He simply enjoys spending time with her. Arisa laughs, admitting she enjoys cooking for him because it's easier than cooking for her whole family. Yuzuru offers to help next time, telling her she's welcome to visit any time. From that day forward, Arisa begins visiting Yuzuru's apartment every Saturday to play games and cook for him. About a month into this routine, Yuzuru is lounging in his living room when his phone rings. It's his grandfather, and Yuzuru immediately knows the call is important. His grandfather informs him of an upcoming event in 7 days, the birthday of a young lady from the Amaji family. Yuzuru straightens up, realizing this is tied to his engagement. His grandfather's tone is serious, reminding him that good couples remember important dates. Yuzuru promises to pick out an appropriate gift, trying to sound assured. His grandfather seems satisfied but wistfully adds that he hopes to live long enough to see his grandchild's future unfold. After the call ends, Yuzuru slumps back, feeling a mix of frustration and obligation. His grandfather's words stick with him, and he realizes he'll need to approach this situation carefully. Yuzuru consults his friend Soichiro about the gift dilemma. He explains that thank you gifts differ from birthday presents, with surprise and excitement being the key elements. Though helpful, this advice doesn't quite solve Yuzuru's problem. He recalls Ryuzenji's opinion, but that doesn't help either. Frustrated, he decides to get a girl's perspective, hoping it will offer clearer guidance. He visits his childhood friend, Tachibana Ayaka, who briefly misunderstands his visit as an indication of romantic interest. He quickly clears the confusion, explaining he needs advice on choosing a birthday present for another girl. Ayaka asks him a series of questions and points out that accessories might not be the best choice since he doesn't know the girl well or have a romantic connection with her. He struggles to explain their relationship, eventually admitting they share a common goal but aren't very close. Understanding this, she suggests a thoughtful but neutral gift, like an assortment of sweets. While Yuzuru had considered this idea before, he worries it might seem impersonal or fail to meet his grandfather's expectations. As they discuss sweets, he wonders if a cake might be a good choice but remains uncertain. At that moment, Chihiro joins the conversation. Ayaka quickly brings her up to speed, and Chihiro suggests cosmetics, a gift she personally enjoys receiving. Ayaka agrees, pointing out it could leave a positive impression. Encouraged by their suggestions, Yuzuru decides to follow their advice. The girls cheer him on as he leaves, wishing him luck, although he still feels uncertain about his relationship.